Why do we need traditional Chinese medicine? Not all traditional things are good. After all, there are many outdated traditions around the world, which have been debunked as technology advances. If something ancient was awesome, but fails to be useful to our modern lives, it would be best to put it into a museum. The pictures here are taken from the Met website. When I visited the Met Museum during my decade living in New York City, I was amazed by the marvelous artworks from different parts of the world, and there was certainly great ancient wisdom in them. Yet, other than the enjoyment of learning and appreciation, would these artifacts be applicable to my day-to-day life today? Probably not. For another example, one of my friends has a grandma who fixed airplanes in World War II. She now serves as a docent in a museum to show the history for these planes, whose technologies are no longer in service. So assuming that traditional Chinese medicine, also known as TCM, is an ancient wisdom, why do we still need it today? Let's look at the term traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. Why traditional? We don't learn traditional physics. The physics we learn today builds up and encompasses those teachings. Modern medicine is different, as it is a relatively new phenomenon with a core concept that differs from many traditional medicine's teachings. Are traditional medicine classics obsolete nowadays? Let's take a look at a few examples. Among the oldest of surviving Chinese materia medica, the Shen Yan Ben Cao Jin, translated as Divine Farmer's Classic of Materia Medica, categorized 365 herbs according to 3 categories. The first is the 120 upper herbs, which are mild and can be used daily for the long term, yet still won't harm most people's bodies, including wheat, sesame, caramel, oranges, beeswax, goji berries, and etc. These belong to this category. The next category is the 120 middle kinds of herbs, which include ginger, scallion, longan, beans, beef, lamb, and etc. This also even includes the FDA-banned ephedra. Those are considered to have a tiny toxicity, or in between ultra-safe and ultra-toxic, and can be consumed in moderation or with proper care. There is also the 125 lower herbs, referring to those herbs that possess higher toxicity and should be used in small quantities or only to treat diseases, e.g. almond, peaches, Szechuan peppers, centipedes, aconite, panela, etc. That said, toxicity is not meaningful without quantity. Note that the definition of herbs is much broader than many people think. From day-to-day foods, such as wheat, rice, barley, fruits, vegetables, domestic animals, minerals, and so on. You can find most of them in this ancient book. The side effects for these medicinal foods and natural herbal medicines are well known and survived thousands of years of empirical evidence for clinical effectiveness than any modern pharmaceutical drugs. Most modern clinical trials take 6 to 7 years and usually no more than 2 decades, even taking the discovery phase and post-licensing stage into consideration. It was said that the longest clinical trial to date, botulinum toxin for involuntary movement disorder, by the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Strokes in Maryland, was started in November 1985 and enrolled 2,000 participants. 3 decades sounds a long time, but can never surpass traditional Chinese medicine that has started more than 5,000 years ago and countless participants throughout the history till now. In fact, as a former clinical trial statistician and data scientist myself, we have never had any pharmaceutical clinical trial undergone thousands of years of clinical trials with such strong support of big data as traditional Chinese medicine has. The Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, in one of the latest translations, was an ancient treatise on health and disease said to have been written by the famous Chinese emperor Huangdi around 2600 BC. The book takes the form of a discussion between Huang Di and his physician, in which Huang Di inquires the nature of heaven and earth, which includes astronomy, climate, geographic location, human health, disease, and treatment. Some of the ideas are easy to comprehend. For example, the key to a long, healthy life is to follow the Tao and how we are designed, or the natural way of the universe. The fundamentals of human bodies are described in two aspects, shape and shen, with shape corresponding to descriptions much broader than physiology in modern medicine, and shen, the invisible spirit based on qi, usually translated as vital energy or life force, but has a broader meaning representing the energetic system for everything in nature. The strength of the Yellow Emperor's internal canon of medicine, and possibly a major reason for its influence and its applicability, even today, not just as a reference source for those interested in traditional Chinese medicine, is that its ideas are still surprisingly valid. Despite the ancient Chinese language in which it was written, and misleading information due to injuries in translation and misunderstanding, the book from 2600 BC, or compiled at the latest 2,700 years ago, already recognized that the process of the human body and spirit follows certain natural principles, and the health and diseases are influenced by natural aging processes, as well as the environment. Its descriptions on climate and timing of the pandemic are again verified from the most recent COVID-19 to swine flu, SARS, and so on in the recent decades. In case you are interested in those contents, please subscribe to Herbal-Pal channel and check out the video Climate Impact on Diseases during Lulu's talk in March, and all this needs to be understood to ensure accurate diagnosis and treatment for any condition. A less ancient Chinese medical archive, Shen Han Lun, also known in English as the Treatise on Cold Damaged Diseases. Treatise on Cold Damaged Diseases is said to be written by Zhang Zongjing, who lived during 150 to 219 AD, has been the clinical Bible for many TCM doctors in history, including Herbal-Pal's partnering doctors today. This great influential work introduced the specific symptoms of six-channel syndromes and their corresponding treatments and diagnosis. We will give an introduction to six-channel diagnosis on Herbal-Pal channel later. Subscribe and stay tuned. Traditional medicine and modern medicine might reach the same conclusion at times, but the system of traditional medicine is independent of modern medicine. In the Chinese language, modern medicine is called Western medicine, and Chinese medicine already implies traditional. Many believe that it was not until the Opium War that Western medicine began to be introduced in China. Before Xinhai Revolution in 1911, there was little influence of modern medicine in China other than Chinese medicine. Hence, adding the term traditional is redundant in Chinese, and TCM is a Western terminology. However, led by some influences in the first half of the 20th century, TCM became a symbol of the old backward ways of doing things to those who wished to modernize China. During the Cultural Revolution spanning a decade from 1966 to 1976 in China, the traditional medical curriculum was buried. Many revered medical practitioners were killed, imprisoned, or sent to indoctrination camps for their traditional ways of thinking. Not only did TCM doctors suffer tremendously during the movement, but tons of precious historical materials were destroyed, in addition to those lost over 5,000 years of dynasties. Have you heard of the parable of the blind men and the elephant? It's a story of a group of blind men who have never come across an elephant before, and who learn what the elephant is by touching it. Each blind man feels a different part of the elephant's body, but only one part. They then describe the elephant based on their limited experience, and their descriptions of the elephants are different from each other. In some versions, they come to suspect that the other person is dishonest, and they even come to blows. In health and medicine, no one has the ultimate, complete truth. As forward-looking and timeless as some TCM principles are, it has limitations, just like any medicine does. If the blind man who touches the butt of the elephant thinks he has the complete truth and declares his own methods as the golden rule to judge others, then he could be considered a little too arrogant, because whoever believes they have the complete truth in medicine would be able to heal every disease in the world without sequela. If most TCM doctors can understand modern medicine, why are there so many people anti-traditional medicine? In fact, if you look closely, there are not that many modern medicine doctors who are anti-traditional medicine. Most of the die-hard anti-traditional medicine activists are pure research scientists who only conduct work in the lab with devices and animals. Why? Because healthcare workers of any medicine who have direct contact and work closely with patients are more likely to understand the complexity of human beings, and there are always cases that fall out of statistical expectations and become surprising outliers. Regardless of East or West, traditional or modern, good healthcare workers all need to understand humanity, understand the variability and complexity of human nature. TCM and modern medicine are different systems, but they're not incompatible. If you check Herbal-Pal's video, How Does TCM Heal Diseases?, we use an analogy to illustrate that they can really reference and learn from each other without losing their own identities, since they all serve the purpose of reducing human sufferings. In the recent 100 years, there were a group of Japanese doctors who studied modern Western medicine first, before they learned traditional medicine, known as Kempo medicine in Japan. One of them was Dome Yakas, and one of our partnering doctor's teachers, Atsukta Keisetsu, is another physician with modern medicine background who turned to the ancient wisdom and practiced the skills of abdominal palpations from ancient China. For those who have been solely trained in modern medicine system, their book might be helpful. Hospitals, clinics, and doctors' offices are very different environments than research labs. Not only are practicing physicians constantly surrounded by people, but they also have the opportunity to help patients in a face-to-face context. Even with the prevalence of telemedicine, human dynamics still exist, and no one can dismiss even in a virtual setting. On the contrary, using my own research experience in various labs as an example, I did not need to have any direct human contact. Nor did the principal investigator and team, because investigative methods using machines and numbers were enough to reach the findings we hypothesized. As science develops, more and more principles in TCM have been verified from a different angle. Yet, it can take centuries for some major breakthroughs in modern science. The 5,000-year clinical trials of ancient wisdom TCM has already been empirical evidence. We have worked with many modern medicine doctors who learned from TCM and adopt some practices that they found useful in their clinics or patient education. For example, one heart surgeon who used to work for the Mayo Clinic in UCSF told me that when he used acupuncture anesthesia in one of his surgeries, he was able to talk to the patient during the surgery, and the patient was completely conscious and responded to him, although the body was anesthetized through acupuncture positioned precisely with over 100 needles. In fact, using herbal medicine or acupuncture instead of anesthetics to induce analgesia was performed in China thousands of years ago, and Hua Tuo, an outstanding doctor in the 2nd century China's Three Kingdoms era, was believed to be a TCM surgical pioneer who attained high sophistication in surgical anesthesia. Ma Fei San was the first anesthetic in the world and was invented by Hua Tuo. Although Hua Tuo's book and ancient prescriptions were lost, the ingredients are thought to have included cannabis and datura, a hallucinogenic plant, which later was recorded as an anesthetic during the Song Dynasty. We will tell stories of him when we reach the topic of emotional therapy too. Subscribe to Herbal-Pal's channel to hear those stories. With the many treasures that TCM possesses, it would be a shame if we continue to lose such wisdoms to time. While many gems like Hua Tuo's anesthesia might be gone, there are still many more things left that we could keep and use in our daily lives. Whether you're looking to improve your health, have minor issues, or have a health problem that you can't seem to fix, the teachings of TCM will always be of help. Please share this video to those who might benefit from it. Subscribe to Herbal-Pal today for more beneficial contents to improve your health.